the previous episode of this series with a short clip from the entry into the Truso Valley, one of Georgia's most breathtaking and historically rich areas. This valley, often associated with tranquility and natural beauty, also echoes its turbulent past. I discussed this in more detail in my 2D series from Georgia, where I explore various ruins of settlements and fortresses, each narrating the story of this region. Here, illuminated by the intense afternoon sun, we see travertine formations standing out distinctly in shades of white and orange-red against lush green mountain slopes. Travertine is a porous sedimentary rock resembling marble, composed mainly of calcite and aragonite, typically found where limestone bedrock and mineral springs occur. Venturing deeper into this remote and isolated area, I noticed that what was once a distant, untouched region is now undergoing visible changes. Improved roads, electrical lines, and increasing tourist presence, undeniably altering the character of this previously pristine landscape. This contrast between untouched nature and advancing civilization becomes the central theme of my reflections. Until I realize that these very developments have just provided the means to escape the trouble I found myself in, having ventured slightly too far off-road while searching for the perfect camping spot. How did I end up here? I had this idea to drive a bit away from the road and the spot where tourists were camping, visible behind my car. My plan was to shoot a day-to-night-to-day time-lapse, which required leaving my camera gear outside overnight, so I preferred to do it in a more secluded location. Unfortunately, the meadow I wanted to drive onto turned out to be very waterlogged. To make things worse, power poles had been installed along the only road cutting through the valley, the very road I was trying to move away from. As I made my way back towards it, I encountered a strip of heavily disturbed ground. Since it ran parallel to the road, I tried to find a suitable place to cross it, and, well, this is how it ended up. You'll learn more in the 2D series from this trip. As you can see, unwinding the winch cable isn't exactly a light task. The amount of gearing that gives the winch the power to pull the vehicle out of such trouble is significant, and overcoming the resistance requires quite a bit of strength. Behind me, on the right side of the frame, was a power pole that I planned to anchor to. Hidden in the tall grass all around were puddles of water, so I decided to unwind more cable in this spot to give myself an easier path. Hidden in the tall grass all around were puddles of water, so I decided to unwind more cable at this spot to give myself an easier path to the pole without having to wrestle with the cable at the same time. Just a bit of strength training in a beautiful setting. After wrapping the pole with the cable, all that was left was to walk straight back to the car while leaving the cable carefully to ensure it wouldn't snag on anything during operation. Next, I flipped the lever of the winch that locks its brake, allowing it to enter working mode. Not wanting to bring mud into the cabin, I climbed onto the hood of the car, carefully stepped over the door, and settled into the driver's seat. I then started the engine, switched on the main power switch that supplies voltage to the winch relay, activated the dashboard switch that enables drum direction control, and proceeded to pre-tension the cable. After confirming that the cable was securely attached and that the pole wasn't tilting under the strain, I moved on to the main operation. On my first attempt to move, the engine stalled, so I had to start it up again. One school of thought in winching technique says that you shouldn't assist the winch by engaging the vehicle's drivetrain. However, in conditions like this, I usually spin the wheels simultaneously because it feels like it eases the winch's load. When I hear all the grounding sounds from the motor, It feels like the equipment is working at its limits. I'd rather lighten the load. After all, on last year's trip to Turkey, I burned out a winch motor, so this approach isn't entirely without merit. Here, the winch was really working hard. My fully loaded expedition vehicle weighs around 3 tons. You could see how the rear end was sinking into the mud. So beside the vehicle's weight, the winch also had to deal with the resistance of the waterlogged ground. At some point, the front mud flap bent so much that the already brittle rubber simply gave up, leaving it hanging by a zip tie I had used after partially tearing it off on, if I recall correctly, a Balkan trip. Once I winched myself to a pole where it looked like I might be able to drive a bit farther under my own power, I decided to unhook from the pole and give it a try. However, I wasn't confident I'd get far, so I didn't spool the cable back onto the drum. Instead, I wrapped it around the bumper, just in case I had to repeat the whole process again. I hoped that it wouldn't be necessary because the next pole was quite far away, and I'd have to use an extension to anchor to it. Altogether, with extensions, I have about 70 meters of cable, which seems like plenty, but as experience has shown me more than once, even that can sometimes be not enough. This time, a single pull was sufficient. Once I got moving, I managed to reach the road without getting stuck again. And here are the horses you can encounter on the road to the Gergeti Trinity Church. They are a local attraction and turn out to be quite the gluttons as well. They absolutely loved my raisins and nuts and weren't shy about asking for more. Spending time with these beautiful animals was a pleasant break from the cramped space of my cabin on the journey from Truso Valley to one of Georgia's most famous landmarks. Apologies for the change in sound quality in this part of the recording. The batteries in my microphone died without me noticing, so the audio was captured by the camera's built-in microphone instead.
Come on, let's wade in the water, wade in the water, children away in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. He is. God's gonna trouble the water. If you don't believe I've been redeemed, He's gonna trouble the water. Follow me down to the Jordan stream. He's gonna trouble the water. God is. I stepped in the water and the water was cold. He's gonna trouble the water. Chill my body but not my soul. He's gonna trouble the water. He is way in the water. Oh, way in the water. Children away in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Oh yes, God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. He's gonna trouble the water. He is. He's gonna trouble the water.
Immersing myself in a stream flowing from beneath an ice cap, with a temperature barely above freezing, was an invigorating experience. The sensation was further intensified by the fast-moving current, which heightened the feeling of cold and made it a challenge to stay in place. Luckily, I found a small depression near the bank where I could lay down and brace my feet against the rocks in front of me, allowing me to stay put. However, resisting the force of the water crashing against my neck and shoulders was an effort that disrupted any attempt of relaxation or reaching a meditative state in these conditions. Ultimately, the entire bath ended up being more of a hygiene routine than a spiritual experience, and it was relatively short-lived. I shuddered to think what it would be like if I didn't have an onboard water system allowing me to take a warm shower almost daily. I would have to endure something like this far more often, and lying down in ice-cold water isn't always the most appealing option. That said, as I mentioned at the beginning, the rush of endorphins after such a bath, combined with the beauty of the surroundings, the still warm rays of the setting sun, and the satisfaction of having finally retreated deeper into the mountains, away from the tourist hotspots, made me feel truly, truly good in this place. Since I had been out for a hike earlier, and the bath was the perfect final to the afternoon, hunger started to set in, so after briefly drying off, I got to work preparing a meal in this remote and peaceful spot. From the Juta Valley, after covering another 160 kilometers, I reached the famous road to Omalo. This 70-kilometer route, leading from Valley to the village hidden deep in the mountains of the Gergeti region, is considered one of the most dangerous roads in the world. In 2013, the BBC included it on its list of Europe's most extreme roads. Depending on weather conditions, the journey typically takes between 3 to 5 hours. It is usually open from June to October, while in the remaining months it becomes impassable due to snow and harsh weather conditions. The first part of the route leads from Valley to Lechuri, covering the first 10 kilometers. This initial stretch follows a relatively wide road, partially paved in some areas. The route runs alongside the Story River, offering scenic and peaceful landscapes. From Lechuri to the road maintenance base, between the 10th and 20th kilometer, the road becomes rougher and increasingly riddled with potholes. Driving speed drops to 10 to 15 kilometers per hour, making the ride feel like a vehicular rodeo. The road maintenance base is a crucial spot, serving as a hub for crews responsible for keeping the road passable and conducting rescue operations. From the maintenance base to the first switchbacks covering kilometers 20 to 30, the ascent into the mountains begins. The road narrows significantly and the exposures increases, revealing breathtaking drops into the deep ravines. This section features the first hairpin bends, requiring full attention and careful maneuvering. This is the part of the route you're seeing here. Beyond the first switchbacks, the road stretches towards Abano Pass from kilometer 30 to 45. This is the most challenging segment. The road winds through narrow, steep switchbacks with a dramatic elevation gain. Abano Pass, standing at approximately 2,850 meters above sea level, marks the highest point of the route and offers jaw-dropping panoramic views. From the pass, the road descends towards Lower Omalo, covering the last 25 kilometers. The descent continues through more switchbacks, but the gradient gradually becomes less steep. The landscape transforms into lush greenery, passing through several small villages before reaching Lower Omalo, the main settlement in Gergeti. In the next part, I'll take you on a drive all the way up to the pass. For more insights and different perspective of this journey, check out the 2D series from this trip on my channel. And of course, don't forget to subscribe, like and leave a comment.